First of all, you just can't, you can't do searches that aren't based on any kind of probable cause. And one of the big problems we have here is that you have to have specific factual justification. But what happens is an inspector shows up at the property and demands to inspect and says, sign a consent form. If you don't sign the consent form, they fine you $255 for refusing to sign a consent form. So you're penalized for exercising your Fourth Amendment rights. And the Supreme Court has said you cannot penalize citizens for exercising their Fourth Amendment rights.
All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of Michigan, and it has to do with a topic I have covered several times before, and it's these rental registration programs and these inspection programs. And I am 100% opposed to them because I agree, right? They violate your constitutional right to, against search without a warrant, okay? I mean, they search or seizure without a warrant. So what it does is it allows these property inspectors to come up into your property and look at it, and they don't have a search warrant. So yeah, the government shouldn't be allowed to do that, and it's a violation of the Constitution. In fact, one of these laws similar to this, actually, they tried to pass here in Omaha, Nebraska, and that is how the local landlords got this law basically thrown out. They fought it and they said, hey, we have a right against unreasonable search and seizure, and the judge agreed, so that is the way that you have to fight these laws. Okay, these rental inspection laws where they can just come in your property whenever they want to and treat your tenant's property, take their privacy away, take your privacy away as the property owner without a warrant. That is ridiculous, and it should never have been legal in the first place, in my opinion. So yeah, this is a tough topic because I know there's a lot of cities out there that already have these laws and rules and regulations in place, and they haven't been fought. Well, I don't know what to do in those cases other than say, hey, maybe you can push this up and it can get up to the Supreme Court and then they can make a decision. But until then, just look and see what's happening in cases like this one here. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, leave your comment down below. Let me know what you think. Does your city have a rental registration and a rental property inspection program in place? And if it does, right, does that allow them to come in and inspect your property anytime they want? I'm just curious because that is, in my opinion, it is a constitutional violation. So, they oftentimes will say, oh, well, we've got to do this because we have to make sure it's safe for these tenants. And I'm like, well, did the tenant tell you the property they had an issue with the property? And basically I believe it should be complaint driven. If the tenant wants the property inspected, there's already numbers they can call. There's people they can call with the city or the county or jurisdiction where they live to come and inspect the property and check it for safety. But they don't need the right to just come in whenever they want to and then charge you ridiculous fees every single year just so they can pay a bunch of bureaucrats. Okay. Anyway, let me get into this article. This is coming from Fox47News.com, and it says, landlords take aim at Jackson's housing ordinance. Attorney says the way it's enforced violates the Constitution. And this is Jackson, Michigan, not Jackson, Mississippi, okay? So don't worry about them having any water problems right now. Anyway, let's get into the article. Several landlords are filing a lawsuit in federal court to challenge Jackson's rental property ordinance. The complaint filed in May takes aim at Jackson's Chapter 14 housing ordinance. Attorney John Toivonen says the city has unlawfully collected $4.7 million in rental property inspection fees by violating the Fourth Amendment, the right to against unreasonable searches. He argues the city's inspection ordinance is too vague because a property owner can't make out the inspection schedule. The city changed its inspection schedule in July 2021 to coincide with the mandatory rental property registration, which is every 3 years. So landlords there, I guess they have to, every time they register their property, now they have to get it inspected every 3 years. And, I don't know, I don't quite understand I think they said the landlords were confused about the schedule, but they changed it they recently changed it so that it would coincide with the mandatory rental registration. So, yeah, the big issue that they're having is obviously, the Fourth Amendment, the searches and without a warrant, and they're coming into these people's properties. Even if they had a warrant, I have a big issue with this because there's no crime that's taking place. Okay, so. To me, it would seem like, hey, how did you get a warrant? What is the warrant for? The warrant is to say, hey, we have evidence that a crime is occurring, etc. I remember I'm speaking about this from a law enforcement perspective, right? So we have evidence that a crime is taking place, right? How do you get a warrant when you don't have any complaints from the tenant, you have no history of any problems? I mean, the only way you'd be able to get a warrant is if I guess you could do the plain view thing. If you were looking at it and you could see that, there's a huge safety violation that you could see from the outside. I don't know, okay? But they're not getting warrants. They're just saying, hey, we're going to go into your property whether you want us in here or not. And, that, like I said, that's a privacy issue. First of all, you just can't do searches that aren't based on any kind of probable cause. And one of the big problems we have here is that you have to have specific factual justification, Toivonen said. But what happens is an inspector shows up at the property and demands to inspect and says sign a consent form. They fine you $255 for refusing to sign a consent form. So you're penalized for exercising your Fourth Amendment rights. And the Supreme Court has said you cannot penalize citizens for exercising their Fourth Amendment rights. So yeah, that's pretty bad, okay? So if you refuse to allow them into the property to inspect it, they can fine you. Now keep that in mind. And the Supreme Court, like he said, has already said that they can't penalize you for refusing to sign a consent form. So what the city's probably going to do is they're just going to say, okay, well, we're not going to fine people anymore, but we're still going to require this inspection. So I don't like property inspections for a number of reasons, right? And the number one is that these property inspectors like to nitpick little crap that doesn't need to be fixed, that isn't a safety issue, and then force a landlord to do a bunch of expensive repairs to fix stuff that has zero relevance on safety, livability, or anything else. In fact, if it was a private homeowner, they would just be living with it and have no issues. So, it boggles my mind that these property inspectors are doing this sort of stuff, but that is what they do because they're bureaucrats. That's their whole job, is to nitpick little stuff. Oh, you got peeling paint on, you got to paint the whole house. You got peeling paint over here. Oh, there's a crack in one of these windows in the back. You need to replace this window. Just idiotic stuff, okay? I'm highly opposed to these sort of property inspections when I know for a fact that the majority of landlords are keeping their properties in good condition because they won't be able to rent them out if they're not in good condition, okay? That is just a simple truth. We don't want our tenants to be living in squalor. Yeah, there are a few bad landlords out there who aren't keeping their property up to date and in good shape, but you know what? Whether there's an inspection program or a registration program or random inspections or whatever, those people are still going to be doing that stuff. They're not going to stop. They don't care. Why? Because they're bad landlords. And remember, they only represent probably less than 1% of all the total landlords out there. So what you end up with is this, law that basically punishes the other 99% for the things that this 1% is already doing, not going to stop doing, and doesn't care about. So yeah, this is a stupid thing. I hope that they win their lawsuit. Yeah, I agree. It is unlawful. It's unconstitutional. We shouldn't be allowed, or they shouldn't be allowed to come in and search our properties whenever they feel like it. And we shouldn't be penalized if we refuse to consent to their inspections.